Move.
I showed up at my daughter's mansion without warning. What I found stopped my heart cold. She was lying on the floor by the entrance, dressed in torn, filthy rags. Her husband casually wiped his shoes on her body, then turned to his guests with a smile. "That's our crazy servant." My daughter didn't move, didn't speak, just lay there breathing. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took one step forward and said 5 words. The entire room went silent. "Thank you for being here with me. Drop a comment, where are you right now, and what time is it? I need to know I'm not alone in this." Because that night when I stepped into that house, I'd never felt more alone in my life. The taxi driver refused to go any further. He killed the engine 300 yards from the mansion and stared at me through the rearview mirror. "Can't do it, sir. Owner doesn't like unknown cars near his gate. Last time I came here, security slashed my tires." I paid him and stepped out onto the Connecticut road. October wind bit through my coat, carrying the smell of smoke and dead leaves. The mansion sat on a hill ahead. White columns, wrought iron gates, the kind of wealth that should mean happiness. I hadn't heard from my daughter in 18 months. The last message was 2 words, "Dad, help." I shouldered my bag and walked up the driveway. The security booth stood empty. I pressed the buzzer. No answer. The small side gate swung open when I pushed it. Music and laughter drifted from inside the house, a party. I rang the front doorbell twice. No one came. So I circled to a service entrance and slipped inside. The narrow hallway smelled of bleach and led me to the main foyer. That's where I found her. Rebecca lay on the floor by the front door, directly on the welcome mat. She wore a faded gray t-shirt and torn sweatpants. Her hair hung in greasy tangles. Her eyes stared at nothing. Guests in evening wear stepped around her like furniture. Then a man in a tailored suit emerged from the salon. Derek, my son-in-law. He walked to the door without looking down, stepped onto Rebecca's stomach, and began wiping his shoes on her back. One shoe, then the other, like she was a doormat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced to the guests, smiling, "don't mind her. She's our crazy maid. Poor thing's not right in the head, but we take care of her. It's our way of giving back." Some people laughed. Others shook their heads with false sympathy. No one objected. I stood frozen at the corridor entrance. The world narrowed to that single image, my daughter on the floor, polished shoes on her back, laughter echoing like breaking glass. I took one step forward. A champagne flute shattered against marble. Everyone turned. A gray-haired man in a navy suit stood in the salon doorway, staring at me as if he'd seen a ghost. The golden champagne pooled at his feet, but he didn't notice. I recognized him, William Patterson. 20 years ago, I'd held his intestines in my hands for 4 hours on an operating table. He'd sworn he'd repay the favor. "Thomas Grant," he whispered. Derek's head snapped up at the sound of my name. His face froze for half a second, something cold and sharp flashing behind his eyes. Then he smiled wide and bright. "Dad." He stepped off Rebecca and moved toward me with open arms. "My God, what a surprise! Why didn't you call ahead?" I didn't embrace him. I looked past him at my daughter on the floor. Rebecca turned her head slowly. Her lips moved. "Dad." Her voice was barely audible. "Are you alive?" Derek gestured toward the hallway. "Let's talk in my study. Privately." 2 guards appeared behind me, blocking the exit. I could fight, or I could learn the truth. I followed. Derek's study was all dark wood and leather, the kind of room designed to intimidate. The door clicked shut behind me. Bookshelves lined the walls, volumes with perfect spines, never read. Derek poured himself scotch and didn't offer me any. "Please sit." I remained standing. He shrugged, settling into his chair. "I understand this is difficult, seeing Rebecca like that, but there's a lot you don't know." "Then tell me." He opened a folder on his desk. Medical records, a psychiatrist's signature. "Schizoaffective disorder," he said. "Drug-induced psychosis. Said I was poisoning her food. Classic paranoid delusion." I picked up the photo. Something was wrong. The pupils were too dilated, not the pattern for cocaine. The timeline didn't match what I knew about drug-induced psychosis. "I've brought in the best specialists," Derek continued. "Switzerland, Johns Hopkins. They all say the same thing. Irreversible." He pulled out more documents. Prescriptions, treatment plans. Very official. Very convincing. To someone who wasn't a doctor. "I could have had her committed," he said softly. "But I love your daughter, so I keep her here. It costs $30,000 a month, but I don't complain. I want to see her, I said. Now. That's not advisable. She's unstable. I'm a surgeon. I've treated psychosis. Let me see my daughter. Derek's smile tightened. Something cold flashed in his eyes. Then it vanished. Of course you want to help. He leaned back. Which is why I'm making you an offer. He pulled out a checkbook. $500,000 a year, transferred to your account. You go home, live comfortably, and let me handle Rebecca's care. You're bribing me. I'm offering you peace and privacy for my wife's treatment. His voice hardened. Be honest, Thomas. Where were you the last 18 months she stopped calling? You accepted it. You were relieved. My jaw clenched. You moved on, he said, while I stayed here every night when she screamed. When she didn't recognize me, I held her. Not you. Stop. Rebecca told me about her mother. His tone turned casual. Margaret. How she died young. How afraid of you she was. How she cried herself to sleep. My fist connected with his jaw before I knew I'd moved. Derek crashed into the desk. Papers scattered. The Scotch glass shattered. The door burst open. Guards grabbed my arms, twisting them behind my back. I didn't resist. Derek stood slowly, touching his split lip, blood on his teeth when he smiled. Predictable, he said. Anger issues. Violence? Just like Rebecca described. He picked up his phone. I could call the police. Assault in my home. That's a felony. You'd be arrested. He paused. And Rebecca, I'd have her committed to a state facility by morning. Judges owe me favors. She'd be locked up for years. The guards tightened their grip. Or you leave. Now, forget you came. I'll forget this. Outburst. He stepped closer, voice dropping. You want the truth. Rebecca married me because I reminded her of you. She told me that. Said she felt safe because you'd taught her what love looks like. Control, rules. His smile widened. I'm just the honest version of what you were. The guards pulled me to the door. Think about my offer, Derek called. 500,000, more than you deserve. They escorted me through the foyer. Rebecca was gone. The party continued unaware. They pushed me outside. The door slammed. I stood on the porch, hands shaking, tasting blood. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text, Patterson. River Street. Midnight. Come alone. William Patterson's house was a Victorian relic, tucked between glass office towers in Old Greenwich. He opened the door before I knocked his face pale. Inside, a fire crackled in the stone fireplace. 2 chairs faced it, brandy already poured. 20 years ago you saved my life, William said as we sat. 4 hours holding my intestines. I swore I'd repay that debt. He looked at me. The moment's here. But first you need to understand what you're facing. He drank deeply. 6 years ago, I introduced Derek to Claire Bennett, 22, a banker's daughter. 1 year later, I visited her in a Swiss psychiatric facility. She didn't recognize me, couldn't speak. Diagnosis, drug-induced schizoaffective disorder. His voice cracked. Derek had her declared incompetent. Took control of $15 million. And you believed him. I believed him when he cried at her hearing. I felt sorry for him. William refilled his glass with shaking hands. A housekeeper saw Derek enter Melissa's room an hour before they found the body. Saw him carry out an empty bottle. That testimony vanished. The investigator got promoted and transferred. Derek inherited $20 million. The fire popped. I waited. 3 months ago, Derek's father was dying. Howard Sterling. Cancer. I visited him in the hospital. He started confessing. William's hands trembled. Told me about Claire, Melissa, how he'd taught Derek to find women with money and weakness, how to break them, how to make it look natural. He met my eyes. Howard was proud. Said Derek had perfected what he'd only attempted. Said your daughter was the easiest target Derek had ever found. Why, because someone had already taught her that control equals love. The words landed like a punch. I stood, walked to the fire, stared until my eyes burned. My wife's name was Margaret, I said finally. She died at 52. Heart failure, the doctor said, but I know what killed her. I turned to face William. I controlled every part of her life for 30 years. What she ate, what she wore, whether she could work, see her own sister. I called it love, protection, said I knew better. My voice stayed flat. After she died, I found her diaries. 30 years of journals about how unhappy she was, how afraid, how she prayed for death. William said nothing. I killed my wife with my love, I said. And I taught my daughter that's what love is. Obedience, control, someone always knowing better. I sat back down. Derek told me he's just the honest version of me. He's right. I created the perfect victim. He just found her. The fire crackled between us. We're both guilty, William said quietly. I introduced them. You made her vulnerable. The difference is we can still save her. Howie has lawyers, judges, medical records proving she's insane. You said there's someone inside. William nodded. Helen Wright, the housekeeper. 5 years there. She's seen all 3 wives. She knows what he does. Will she talk? She's terrified, but she contacted me yesterday. Said she can't watch another woman die. He paused. She can help us get to Rebecca, but if Derek finds out, he won't. And if we fail, he'll destroy us. He'll have Rebecca committed somewhere we'll never reach her. I thought of Rebecca on that floor, of Margaret's journals, of 30 years teaching my daughter to accept control as love. Then we don't fail. William met my eyes. Once we start, there's no going back. I'm already past that point. He poured another drink. There's someone inside the house. A housekeeper named Helen Wright. She's seen everything. All 3 wives. He held my gaze. Are you ready to burn it all down? Yes. The Greenwich Avenue Market was nearly empty at 9 p.m. I found Helen Wright in the 3rd aisle, her hands shaking as she picked through wilted lettuce. 55 gray hair in a tight bun. The kind of woman who'd worked in wealthy homes her whole life and learned to be invisible. When I approached, she flinched. Mrs. Wright? She looked around nervously. Not here. Outside. I followed her to a loading area behind the building. She lit a cigarette with trembling hands. I don't have much time, she said. If I'm gone longer than 30 minutes, he asks questions. Tell me what you've seen. She exhaled smoke slowly. 5 years I've worked there. I've seen all 3 wives. She met my eyes. Claire was 22. Happy at first. Then she started forgetting words, falling asleep everywhere, having nightmares, screaming about poisoned food. They called it paranoid psychosis. A year later, she was in Switzerland. He cried at her hearing. Helen's cigarette burned forgotten. Melissa was 40, strong, not easy to break, but her tea smelled chemical. He made it himself every morning. 3 months she was confused. 6 months, dead. They said suicide. Her voice dropped. But I saw him enter her room an hour before. Saw him leave with an empty bottle. I felt cold. And Rebecca. Same pattern. Slower. More careful. He puts white powder in her food. Gives her injections every night. Says it's vitamins. My medical training clicked in. The powder white chalky. Yes. Injection clear liquid. Yes. Neuroleptics. Antipsychotic drugs. High doses cause confusion tremors. The injections, likely scopolamine, causes hallucinations, memory loss. I met her eyes. I can reverse it. I have physostigmine, an antidote. If I reach her, she'll clear in 20 minutes. Helen stared. You're breaking in with your help. He'll kill us both. Or we save her. Those are the options. Long silence. 2 a.m., she said finally. Guards change shift. 5-minute window. The back door service entrance. I'll unlock it. Her room. 2nd floor. 3rd door on right. Cameras. Not in service areas. Only main rooms. Then I use service stairs. 10 minutes, in and out. She pulled out another cigarette. If he catches us, he won't. I'm a military surgeon. I've done extractions in war zones. Miss Melissa thought she'd escaped too. Next day she was dead. I'm not Melissa. She lit the cigarette hand steadier. 2 a.m. back door, 5 minutes. She turned to leave, stopped. If we do this, she gets her life back. That's the plan. She disappeared into darkness. I returned to the hotel, laid out my med kit. Syringes, physostigmine, bandages, checked expiration dates, tested mechanisms, packed in order of use. I'd performed surgery and bombed out buildings with less. At 1:50 a.m., I called a cab. It was time. The cab dropped me 2 blocks away. I walked the rest old surgeon's instinct. Never park where they can trace you. Greenwich at 2 a.m. was dead silent. October wind cut through my jacket. Dead leaves scattered across empty streets. Houses dark. Security lights cold and blue. 847 North Street loomed ahead. Colonial mansion, white columns, perfect lawn. The kind of house that said old money, old secrets. I circled to the service entrance. Helen had left it unlocked, single deadbolt, exactly as she'd described. The door opened without sound. Inside darkness, thick carpet air that smelled like furniture polish and wealth. I moved through the corridor, by feel counting doorways. Third door service stairs, up. Second floor hallway stretched long and dark. Fluorescent strips at baseboard level, just enough light to see. Third door on the right. My hand shook on the knob. The room was bare. No furniture except the bed. No pictures, no books, no curtains. Like a hospital room stripped of humanity. Rebecca lay motionless. I knelt beside her, fingers finding her wrist. Pulse weak, irregular. Pupils dilated, wide black pools that swallowed her eyes. Fresh injection marks dotted her inner arms, purple and angry. On the nightstand, medical supplies arranged with precision. Syringes, alcohol wipes. 3 pharmaceutical bottles. I grabbed the first. Haloperidol, antipsychotic. Powerful sedative. Second bottle. Clear liquid, no color. I uncapped it, sniffed. Bitter. Chemical. Unmistakable. Scopolamine. My hands clenched. This wasn't just abuse, this was systematic erasure. Scopolamine destroyed memory, shattered identity. Combined with haloperidol, it would leave her conscious but trapped, aware but unable to resist. Military interrogators used this combination. I'd seen it in classified briefings. Never thought I'd see it in Connecticut. I pulled out my own syringe. Physostigmine 1.5. The antidote Helen and I had prepared. If I was right about the dosing, if I'd calculated correctly, if there wasn't permanent damage. Too many ifs. I found a vein injected slowly, then waited. 60 seconds. Her breathing unchanged. 2 minutes. Nothing. 3 minutes. My watch ticked impossibly loud. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm too late? What if the damage is permanent? 4 minutes. I thought about Margaret. How I'd failed her. How I'd been too late then, too. 5 minutes. Rebecca's eyelids flickered. 6 minutes. Her fingers twitched. 7 minutes. Her eyes opened, unfocused, confused, searching the darkness. "Rebecca," I whispered. "It's Dad. It's Thomas." She blinked slowly. Her mouth moved, forming words without sound. Then, "You're alive." "What?" Derek showed me. Her voice cracked distant and dreamlike. "Your obituary. Car accident. Last month. He showed me the newspaper. Your funeral. He said you were dead." My chest tightened. He'd erased me from her world. "I'm alive. I'm here. I'm getting you out." But the newspaper was fake. All fake. I helped her sit up. "Can you stand?" She tried. Her legs buckled. I caught her, pulled her arm across my shoulders. Footsteps below. Voices. My phone buzzed. Helen guards early. 2 minutes. "We have to move. Now." Rebecca leaned heavily against me. We made it to the hallway down the service stairs. Every step too loud. Every breath too sharp. The kitchen. Back door 30 feet away. 20 feet. 10. My hand touched the doorknob. Every light in the house blazed on at once. Derek stood at the far end of the kitchen, leaning against the counter, wine glass in hand, perfectly dressed, perfectly calm, smiling. "Going somewhere," he said. Derek wasn't surprised. He'd been waiting for us. Kitchen lights reflected off his wine glass like blood. "I have to admire the effort," he said, swirling the wine. "Breaking into my home. Drugging my wife. Really, Thomas, I expected better from a military man." Helen pressed herself against the wall, face pale. I kept Rebecca upright, her weight sagging against me. "How did you—" "No." Derek smiled. "Cameras. 16 of them. I watched you crawl through my service entrance like a thief. Watched you poison her. All recorded." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. "Already sent to my lawyers. And to the Greenwich Police Department." My jaw tightened. That wasn't poison. That was physostigmine, an antidote to the scopolamine you've been injecting into her for 18 months. "Scopolamine?" He laughed, sharp, mocking. "You're delusional. My wife has been receiving treatment for her mental health issues, prescribed by Dr. Richard Hastings. Yale Medical. All documented, all legal." He stepped closer. "You broke into my home. Assaulted my wife with an unknown substance. That's aggravated burglary assault with a deadly weapon and attempted kidnapping. 15 to 25 years minimum. He was right. Without proof, without witnesses beyond Helen, a housekeeper facing deportation, I had nothing. I took a blood sample, I said quietly. Before I administered the antidote, it's already at the lab. Derek froze for half a second, then laughed harder. A lab? Which lab? Thomas Hartford, General. Yale New Haven. I sit on both hospital boards. My attorneys are partners at Morrison and Finch, the best firm in Connecticut. I have 3 state judges who golf at my club. He sipped his wine. Your little blood sample will disappear before it reaches analysis. Rebecca stirred against me, trying to speak. Derek's eyes flicked to her cold and amused. You know what's funny, he said. She married me because I reminded her of you. Isn't that sick? The way I stood, the way I gave orders, my commanding presence. He air-quoted mockingly. She was looking for Daddy, and I gave her exactly what she wanted, a father figure who'd keep her in line. Rage burned white-hot in my chest. My free hand clenched. Go ahead, Derek whispered. Hit me. Give me one more charge to file. The front door slammed open. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people. Voices sharp with authority. William Patterson strode into the kitchen, followed by a man in a gray suit and 4 detectives in plainclothes. The man in the suit held up a badge. Michael Carson, District Attorney for Fairfield County. Derek Sterling, you're being brought in for questioning regarding the death of Melissa Harper. The wine glass slipped from Derek's hand. It shattered on the marble floor, red liquid spreading like a wound. What? Derek's voice cracked. Melissa died in a car accident 2 years ago. This is Blanche's. Melissa Harper's autopsy has been reopened. Carson continued, pulling out a document. New evidence suggests foul play. Specifically evidence of chemical sedation consistent with scopolamine and haloperidol, the same drugs found in the blood sample Dr. Grant submitted to the State Forensics Lab 3 hours ago. Derek's eyes snapped to me, then to William. You! Derek breathed. You set this up. William's face was stone. Your father told me everything before he died. About Claire, about Melissa, about what you planned to do to Rebecca. He stepped forward. Charles Sterling was my friend for 40 years. Watching what you became destroyed him. His last words to me were, Stop, my son. Derek lunged toward William. 2 detectives grabbed him, spinning him around. Handcuffs clicked shut. This is bullshit, Derek shouted, thrashing. I'll have your jobs, all of you. Do you know who I am? Yeah, one detective muttered. A guy who thinks money makes him untouchable. Rebecca pulled away from me. She swayed, barely standing, but her eyes locked onto Derek's face. I'm filing for divorce, she said. Her voice was weak, but every word cut clean. And I'm testifying against you, on the record. Derek stared at her, shock replacing rage. You called me a doormat, Rebecca continued. You wiped your feet on me for 18 months, but now... She took one shaking step forward. Now you're the doormat, and I'm walking over you. Carson nodded to the detectives. They hauled Derek toward the door. He screamed threats, obscenities, promises of legal destruction all the way out. The kitchen fell silent except for Rebecca's labored breathing. Her knees buckled. I caught her before she hit the floor. Hospital, I said to William, right now. He was already pulling out his phone, dialing 911. As I held Rebecca, her eyes half closed, I felt something I hadn't felt in 18 months. Not relief, not victory, just the edge of hope. When they dragged Derek away, screaming his threats, I caught Rebecca before she collapsed. Hospital, I told William, immediately. The nightmare wasn't over. But for the first time in 18 months, my daughter was free. Greenwich Hospital smelled like disinfectant and the breath of second chances. Rebecca lay in a private room IV drip, washing the poison from her bloodstream. 5 a.m. The hallway was quiet except for soft-soled footsteps and distant monitors beeping. I sat in the chair beside her bed, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. Dr. Patel had been blunt. The toxin levels were critical. Another week, maybe 2, and the neurological damage would have been permanent. She's lucky. Then softer. Her body will recover in a few weeks. Her mind, that'll take much longer. I thought about Rebecca at 7 years old, wrapping her arms around my neck when I came home from deployment. How she'd hold on so tight I could barely breathe. How I'd loved that feeling being needed, being her anchor. I'd taught her that suffocation was love. Rebecca's eyes opened. She blinked, slowly focusing on my face. "Hey," I said. "Hey." Her voice was hoarse. She looked at the IV, the monitors, the sterile white walls. "How long?" "6 hours. They've been flushing your system. You're going to be okay." She closed her eyes. "Define okay." I pulled the chair closer. "Rebecca, I need to tell you something. About your mother." "Dad, you don't have to—" "I do." My hands clenched together. "I destroyed her. Not with poison or violence, but with 30 years of control. I monitored everything, what she ate, who she talked to, where she went. I told myself it was protection, that I was keeping her safe. But I was suffocating her." Rebecca said nothing, just watched me. "She kept diaries," I continued. "Hundreds of pages. Every entry was the same, how trapped she felt, how invisible, how much she wanted to leave but couldn't, because I'd made her afraid of the world outside our house." My voice cracked. The night she passed away, she'd finally decided to file for divorce. The stress triggered the aneurysm. The doctor said it could have happened any time, but I know the truth. I drove her to that point. Silence stretched between us. "I taught you that control equals care," I said. "That's why you chose Derek, because he reminded you of me, and that's my fault." "All of it!" Rebecca's jaw tightened. She looked away, staring at the window where dawn was breaking gray and cold. "I hated you for that," she said finally. "After Mom passed, I felt relieved, because she was finally free, and I hated myself for feeling that way." Her fingers twisted the blanket. "When Derek started controlling me, I thought it was normal. That's how love worked, someone stronger making decisions because they knew better. Rebecca, let me finish." She turned back to me, eyes hard. "You came back. You saw what was happening, and you admitted what you'd done wrong. That's more than most people ever do." She paused. "I don't know if I can forgive you. Maybe I never will. But I want to try." "You don't owe me—" "I'm not doing it for you," she interrupted. "I'm doing it for me. Because holding on to that hate would be another cage." She took a shaky breath. "When I get out of here, I'm getting my own apartment, making my own decisions. No one, not you, not anyone, gets to tell me how to live." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's exactly what you should do." "I might fail. I might make terrible choices." "Probably," I said. "That's how you learn." "You're not going to argue—" "Try to convince me to stay with you where it's safe." I shook my head. "I spent 20 years trying to keep your mother safe. It destroyed her. I won't make that mistake again." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. She reached out, took my hand. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." We sat in silence as the sun rose over Greenwich, painting the room in weak winter light. After a while, Rebecca's breathing slowed. Her grip on my hand loosened as she drifted into sleep, but she didn't let go. For the first time in 20 years, I felt like a father. Not a commander, not a controller, just a father. And that was enough. 3 months later, the trial began. The courtroom in Stamford was packed. Every seat filled. Spectators lined the back wall, the air thick with anticipation for justice. Derek sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, flanked by 2 attorneys, who looked expensive and exhausted. His face was pale, jaw tight. Gone was the wine-sipping confidence from his kitchen. Gone was the man who'd wiped his feet on my daughter. The prosecution called witness after witness. Claire Bennett took the stand, first voice steady and cold. She described years of isolation medical records showing unexplained symptoms, bank accounts she couldn't access. "He made me believe I was losing my mind," she said. "Turns out he was right. I was losing it because he was taking it from me piece by piece." Melissa Harper's younger sister testified, next tears streaming. "My sister called me 2 days before her accident, said she was leaving him. She was terrified, but she'd made up her mind." Her voice broke. 3 days later, she was gone. Helen Wright testified about the cameras, the locked rooms, the pharmaceutical supplies Derek kept hidden. About Rebecca's condition when Helen first started working there, lucid one week, blank-eyed and trembling the next. Then Rebecca took the stand. She wore a simple blue dress. Her hands shook slightly as she placed them on the Bible, but her voice didn't waver. She described the scopolamine injections, the memory loss, the days she couldn't remember her own name. The fake obituary Derek had shown her to make her believe I was dead. He told me love meant giving up control, Rebecca said, looking directly at Derek. That trust meant letting him make every decision. And I believed him. She paused. But that wasn't love. That was imprisonment. Medical experts presented toxicology reports, brain scans showing the damage Derek's drugs had caused. Dr. Patel testified that another 2 weeks would have resulted in permanent neurological harm. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge's voice was steel. Derek Sterling, you used your wealth, your intelligence, and your charm to systematically destroy 3 women. This court sentences you to 30 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Additionally, your assets totaling approximately $50 million are hereby seized for restitution to your victims. Derek's face crumbled. The attorneys flanking him grabbed his arms as he sagged forward. Guards approached, recuffed him, led him toward the side door. He looked back once. Not at Rebecca. Not at me. Just empty eyes searching for something that wasn't there anymore. Power, maybe. Control. Whatever it was, he'd lost it. 1 year later, I stood outside Rebecca's apartment with a bottle of wine and a bag of groceries. She'd insisted on cooking, said she'd been practicing. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom in a renovated building near the harbor. But it was hers. She'd chosen the furniture, the paint colors, the framed photos on the walls, including one of Margaret. My chest tightened when I saw it. Margaret at 35, laughing at something off camera. I'd forgotten she used to laugh like that. I found it in her things, Rebecca said, noticing my stare. Figured it was time to remember her the way she was before. Everything. Dinner was simple pasta salad bread. Rebecca talked about her new job at a nonprofit, about the therapy group she'd joined, about a trip she was planning to Vermont in the fall. I listened, really listened. Didn't interrupt with advice. Didn't ask controlling questions disguised as concern. Just listened. She smiled more than I'd seen in 20 years. After dinner, I helped wash dishes. When it was time to leave, Rebecca walked me to the door. She hugged me, arms around my shoulders, head against my chest. Not the desperate 7-year-old grip. Something gentler, stronger. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. For coming. For changing. I'm trying, I said. I know. So am I. I walked home under streetlights, hands in my pockets, breath fogging in the October air. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang 8 times. I thought about Margaret, about Rebecca, about all the years I'd confused control with care cages with safety. Redemption wasn't erasing the past. It was choosing a different future. My daughter was free, and for the first time, so was I. Love isn't control. Love is freedom. I'm 72 years old now. When I look back at my life, I see a man who confused control with love for far too many years. I'm telling you this true story, not for sympathy, but as a warning. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you've destroyed the people you love most before you learn that holding tight and holding close are 2 very different things. I thought I was protecting Margaret. I thought I was keeping Rebecca safe. But God showed me the truth. I was building prisons, not homes. The Lord teaches us that perfect love casts out fear. But I operated from fear disguised as care. Fear that if I didn't control everything, something terrible would happen. And ironically, my control created the very disaster I was trying to prevent. This isn't just another Grandpa Stories where an old man rambles about the past. This is a true story that needs to be heard, a true story about how patterns pass from generation to generation until someone has the courage to break them. I passed my sickness to my daughter. She nearly died because of what I taught her about love. If you're watching this Grandpa Stories and you recognize yourself, if you monitor your spouse's phone, if you make all the decisions, if you justify it as protection, stop. Please stop. Ask God for the strength to let go. Ask Him to teach you what real love looks like. Because real love doesn't cage. Real love sets free. My daughter Rebecca is free now. We talk every week. She makes her own choices, good ones and bad ones. And I've learned that watching her stumble and stand back up on her own is more beautiful than keeping her trapped in safety ever was. That's my Grandpa Stories lesson for you. Control isn't love.